Hello, hair professionals. Are you wondering about expanding your portfolio of services and understanding more about hair and scalp problems that you see in your chair? And consumers, do you get anxious when it comes to finding a hair professional who is not all talk and who knows about how to care for your specific needs, or when to admit when a problem is out of their league? We've all been victims of what I call deceptional professionals. You know the ones. They say that they have all the magic potions that are 100% effective, or they rattle marketing mumbo jumbo that make you feel good about supposed miracle treatments, but they don't have any proof at all that they work. So, when you walk out with your hair in the worst condition and you're left with trying to figure things out in YouTube University, then that is unacceptable. So I have the Voices of Trichology, and they are here today to discuss their paths to research based practices. My name is Dr. Crystal Porter. I'm a hair scientist and owner of Main Insights, a company that conducts research and focuses on the hair needs of people of African descent. This platform is designed to elevate the Black hair care industry and empower consumers and hair professionals with education that is driven and backed by scientific research. And as always, I appreciate you being here to chat. Now, when I first got started in the industry, I learned a lot about hair science. And when I left corporate America, I wanted to join forces with practitioners because they're trained about hair care and they work their magic to help people look and feel their best. And people really needed to know where to go because when I was giving them specific information about their hair needs, they would always ask, well, how can I look a particular way? So then I sought out to go and find as many hair practitioners as possible, but I was really disheartened because I found that practitioners weren't interested in joining forces with me. I think they felt a little intimidated. And even though I would tell them that I don't do hair and I wouldn't consider myself to be competition, I just wanted to have a place where I could refer people. It still was very hard to find people. And so, one of the things that I found is that we weren't even talking the same jargon, right? So, there were people who were talking about moisture, and everyone talks about moisture. I was talking about water content, but a lot of other people were talking about how to look and feel their best. And then there was a lot of talk about people wanting to know about science, right? And so I would not always know what they were talking about. And sometimes I would even attend scientific meetings with them there. And unbeknownst to them, their questions would be the subject of behind the scenes chatter, right? Between scientists who talked about their inability to articulate scientific terms while they were really trying to sound intelligent. And so, um, as a professional whose mission is to empower the masses, I wanted to have confidence in making recommendations to people who were asking me, well, who can help me with my hair? And I was given a little bit of hope when I ran into someone by the name of Miriam Muhammad. And she is a licensed stylist and she is awesome. I met her at the Black Women's Expo back in 2014, I do believe. And after I met her, then I found the utopia, the jewels. And I would say the jewels are the trichologists. And the reason why I consider them jewels is because they went out and spent money to have more advanced knowledge about hair and scalp disorders. They genuinely want to know a little bit more about why things are going on with people. And then they also were passionate about serving others. And so I'm glad to say that I have three of those trichologist gems who are a part of my team, and I'm honored to have them join me today so that we can discuss how to add scientific expertise to practices. So before I bring them on, I'd like to know who is out there with me today. Please let me know who you are and where you're from. Please put a number 1 if you are a practitioner, a number 2 if you are a consumer, and a number 3 if you are a researcher or a scientist. Trying to make sure that I can see this. All right. Hi, Taria. Thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. I see someone who comes up as Facebook user, so thanks for joining. Now, if you are frustrated with the lack of information available to you when it comes to caring for your hair, or you wasted a lot of time, money, and resources trying to figure things out on your own, then you are at the right place. And that is why we have created the Our Black Hair Matters movement. I have put together a new resource called Finding the Right Stylist. So please go to links.maininsights.com/right stylist, and that should come up on the screen momentarily. And if you also have a pressing concern, speaking of right stylists, my team is always standing by. So not only are they here with me today, but they are standing by. And you can schedule a complimentary 15-minute call by going to links.maininsights.com/APPT. All right. So for those of you who are just joining, welcome to the Our Black Hair Matters lunchtime chat. Today's topic is all about the advantages of moving beyond the chair and having a deeper understanding of the hair and scalp. I am Dr. Crystal Porter, and the Voices of Trichology are here with me today to share their experiences of how they have advanced their knowledge and which helped them to serve their clientele better. So I'm going to bring them on right now, and I am going to give you some background information about them, reading their bios. All right, so introducing Dana Wilson. She is the CEO and Director of Hair Cares, Inc. She is a certified trichologist, sister locks educator, and consultant, a city certified research assistant, certified cold capper, a veteran, and a mother of a son on the autism spectrum. She has been a hair advocate for over 22 years. Her passion for hair ignited the very moment she started her very own Sister Locks journey in the year 2000. She specializes in supporting people who may suffer from hair loss and scalp disorders. She also coaches other natural hair practitioners and locticians through hair regeneration and prevention. She operates through offering in-person and virtual trichology services, and she believes that every strand counts. Then we have Donisha Sullivan, who is a certified trichologist, and she has over 18 years of service providing hair loss prevention and restoration for men and women who suffer from alopecia or hair loss. Donisha is licensed in the states of Georgia and North Carolina, and is a master cosmetologist, currently owning a hair and scalp treatment center in Augusta, Georgia. She also provides non-surgical hair replacement services. Then we have Marvelette. She is also a certified trichologist and known as a pillar in the beauty industry. Marvelette has over 30 years of experience backed with in-depth training, licensure, and certifications. Marvelette continued her education and training in the paramedical and science field, becoming a trichology healthcare practitioner and biomedical research assistant. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So we are going to get started, and I would like to ask, starting with you, Marvelette, what motivated you to even learn about hair science and want to become a research assistant?
First of all, science has always been my absolute favorite subject. So I just like knowing things, how they work, why they work, what makes them stop working. So after I became a trichologist, I learned so much during that journey and before I started the journey that I just wanted more. So that prompted me. Then I actually met you at a conference we were both presenting at, and I learned about what you did, and you offered me different opportunities to join forces with you to do different things, and the rest was history.
Well, thank you for being receptive. Yeah, it was awesome to meet you. That was in Las Vegas,
Mhm.
and that was like back in 2014,
Yeah, it was a long time.
around that time. Wow, it's been a long time. How about you, Dana?
Just like Marvelette, I was just curious. But unlike Marvelette, science was not my favorite subject. But I am always curious as to why something is happening or why you're able to claim certain things. So um, during trichology school, we talked about products a lot, that people were thinking that the products was going to grow their hair back, right? So I wanted to know why. What's in the product? How do we get the data regarding what the products are claiming that we can and cannot do?
Yeah.
So that's how I got into it. And of course, I met you at a conference in I think I don't know, Tampa. It was the conference. So
Yeah. I
mhm.
think we met before Tampa, though.
Did we?
Yeah.
I remember, but
Yeah. It's been a lot of tone conferences, but yeah.
okay.
And how about you, Donisha?
Well, science has always been my interest as well. Um, and I wanted to, so my trichology training introduced me to laser therapy and how effective it was in treating androgenetic hair loss. And so that was my introduction to a tool that was directly linked to supporting hair growth and a certain type of hair loss. And so I wanted to learn more. I wanted to understand how it was effective, how it worked. I wanted to know the research behind it, and that's what introduced me into more research and understanding. And then when I met you, of course, you encouraged the journal articles and the reviews so that we can get an understanding ourselves of what was going on and how the studies were formulated or set up and the questions that were that had to be answered. And so getting a better understanding of that is what endeared me to the research. Is I wanted to understand the why, but I also appreciate the research that goes into answering the questions. And so here we are.
Mhm.
Yeah. So while we're at it, can you talk about your educational journey, your personal educational, or I should say professional educational journey?
Okay,
Donisha.
so I have sure I've been in the beauty industry over 19 years at this point. I've been a licensed cosmetologist over 19 years. And I was raised in the salon. My mother is also a hairstylist. And so I was raised in the salon with the old school beautician, and her focus was hair care. And so I was raised with that idea of maintaining the hair, keeping the hair healthy, um, but I was limited in my understanding. And so that's what encouraged me to reach out more to get a better understanding of different types of hair loss, the causes, and also what would help to address them from a different standpoint outside of just, the conditioners or the products that I learned to use at the hair shows. And so from there, I actually enrolled in USTI, and that was the beginning of my research with hair loss. Once I enrolled into that program, from there I did more research in understanding the different types of hair loss. But again, in that program, I was introduced to androgenetic hair loss as being one of the primary types of forms of hair loss that has been researched, and so that gave me the window or the door into the hair loss industry and the beginning of the journey. So from there, I started to understand more about other forms, traction, alopecia, um, just different ones, CCCA, just different ones. So usually, as trichologists, we don't just stick with one type of hair loss because we see so many different ones, and so to get a better understanding, it just makes it a whole lot easier to help others versus just having this blanket product or blanket service. So yeah, that's the history.
Okay. And Marvelette, what was your educational journey?
Okay. Well, I started out early. I've always did hair. Before I went to school for hair, I did hair. I think I started 10 doing braids or whatever. So I've been 33 years in the industry. And when I started working in salons, like I always got the problem clients that nobody else wanted to service because they had hair loss or they had damaged hair or, didn't have the perfect head of hair, so to speak. And so I would always do amazing things with them, not really knowing what I did, and or they would come back and say, "Look at my hair. Remember, it was broke off. I had these spots. They would have hair." So that just prompted me to dig deeper. Like, what am I actually doing? So then I kind of get bored quick. So I end up going to school to be an instructor, and through I just it prompted more things. So I always wanted to be a trichologist, but I was a little like, okay, all these words, these definitions, the terminology. So what I did 10 years worth of research, and then I did a class to break down words and pronounce because I'm a stickler. I get irritated when I go to a class and they can't pronounce the words properly. That bothers me. And I didn't want to be one of those people. So I did that. Then I did 10 years worth of research, and I was like, okay, it's time. So I went on to NTTI. They ended up being in Georgia. So I had a full salon. I was married with kids. I had to travel back and forth to Georgia to get certified. And that was an interesting journey. And a lot of things, they were kind of new. I think I was the first graduating class. So the second class, but the first graduating class. And there was a lot of things. They were still working out the kinks. And I learned a lot, but I wanted to know more. So I went and dug deeper and connected with some medical professionals. And I learned more and did some more studying, connected with some pharmacists. And became the trichologist. And then I met you, and you were breaking down the science part more for me because it started in school, but they only take you so far. And I always say you're responsible for your own learning. So I like to know things. And for some reason, people think I know a lot. So they always asking me stuff. And I usually know the answer. I don't know everything, but I like to know things because you never know what you're going to have to use or what you might think is something that don't matter, but later on down the line, you might need it. So I just learned as much as I can. I'm still making connections and working with other people and other professionals, especially in the medical industry, because we kind of need each other. And I have learned a lot just talking to them and bouncing different ideas off of them, or things that I've come across, being a trichologist and stuff they came across. And then we kind of make connection and figure some things out and actually came up with a lot of ideas for studies. So.
Absolutely. And Dana, your educational journey.
So my educational journey sounds so more simplistic than Delnisha and Marvelette, but it is out of sheer curiosity. Um, I got sister locks established on my head, and so that ignited really my whole journey with getting my sister locks. I wanted to know, how does this work, right? And so I decided to become a sister lock consultant. And then once I became a consultant, I said, well, I'm going to go to natural hair school. I knew I didn't want to do chemicals, so I decided to go to natural hair school. And I just wanted to know more, right? And then I started losing my hair. As a consultant, I started losing my hair, and I needed to dig and find out why I was losing my hair. And I learned about trichology from another consultant friend of mine, and we started doing treatments on my own hair, and then started digging into finding out why I was losing my hair. And of course, I had seen some of my clients over the years losing their hair, and I did not know how to help them. So I was then able to go and help them as well. Then I went to trichology school, and science was never my thing, but obviously it is now. And obviously, I went to trichology school, got my certification, came back and helped my clients regrow hair, and the curiosity has not stopped. Okay, and so I wanted to learn more about the research, learn about, specifically at the time, was about products and how companies are able to claim certain things, what research data they were able to collect to say this product does this. I noticed people were, and I know I'm picking on miracle products when they say these are the miracle drops or something, but when it didn't work for somebody and it did work for somebody else. Why is that? So I wanted to know more about that. And so I obviously appreciate meeting you, Dr. Porter, with being willing to work with the hair care professionals. I am unlicensed, so I'm a natural hair practitioner. And so I think it's a great idea for a natural hair practitioner to have your education so that they can service their clients in a real way.
Okay.
Mhm.
So thank you for that.
Mhm.
And I have to say, I really appreciate being with you ladies because, as I would tell people, I don't do hair at all. And you are receptive enough to want to not only find out more about what's going on with the science behind some of the products and techniques that you use, but you're also willing to help me collect the data so we can answer the plethora of questions that there are. Because I always say there are more questions than there are answers. So thank you for that. Now, I want to know what has been useful for you in terms of what you've learned during your educational process that has helped you to appreciate some of the research. Dana, you want to
So
continue?
I think, as I was saying before, is really being able to challenge claims, really challenge the claims, because, or really be able to see, look at these ingredients and see if they really do aid in hair growth or not. I think that is my big takeaway, or initial big takeaway from all this work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Marvelette?
I agree with what Dana said. In addition to that, I like that I can conduct my own research.
Mhm.
I like that I can understand when a company has data and we look at the reviews or the breakdown of it. I understand what that means, or different processes they used or did to collect the data. I appreciate that I learned how to read that and how to understand it to where it's meaningful to me and it can help me with my clients, selecting products for them and what they really need.
All right. And Donisha?
So I agree with Dana and Marvelette, of course. um, collecting the data, being able to do your own research like that is so exciting. Um, and then for me, it's a little bit more simple as well because there has already been research that has been done that proves certain products work well for certain types of hair loss. Certain methodologies work well for certain types of hair loss. So as a trichologist, having that information is so helpful because then I can better assist those that are dealing with those types of hair loss. And it's not something that I have to go and figure out myself and do all the research. Although it is fun to be able to, conduct your own research. Some things that are basic or standard, I won't even say basic because there's nothing basic about research. um, but some of those standards that are there, I now understand why they are there, why certain products can be used, and then to what degree. So if this product works better for men, or if it works better for women, or both, having that information and having that knowledge allows me to help others without having to go the long way and figure it out for on my own. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Now I want to look at some of the comments. I see Margaret Haven is here. Hello. Denise Hewlett is here. Hey. Um, Taria says, you ladies are a wonderful team. Thank you so much. This is a great convo. Thank you. Really appreciate that. So I appreciate you sharing the different aspects because I don't think there's an appreciation for what you do. And I say that because a lot of hair practitioners don't really understand the in-depth, not only understanding or trying to understand, but going beyond what is on the surface. I think status quo is to listen to all the gurus out there or so-called gurus, and they make this particular claim and they just don't have any substance behind it. And so, Dana, when you said you're asking more questions, that is exactly where I want everyone to be, not only as a professional, but also as consumers. I want people to know a little bit more about what they're getting into. So thanks for being there and receptive. Now, how about journal articles? One of the things that, as Donisha said, is I harp on, exposing yourself. And I remember I can go back to my undergraduate school days when I first had a journal article presented to me, and I looked at it and I read it and I was like, what the heck does this say? You really don't understand it or have a true appreciation. And it's not until you keep doing it, and it's hard because you don't know what you're reading. And so to be motivated to try to understand something that is kind of foreign to you is difficult. So I'd like to know, can you recall one of the journal articles or some information that you were given that really helped you out? It may have changed, the way you approach things. So I'm just curious about that. Let's start with Marvelette.
I knew he was gonna pick me. There's so many articles that's floating around in my head, so I can't say just one. Collectively, all of them, because you pull from each and every one, you get something from every one. But I will say this: there is one in particular that stuck with me, and it is, I don't want to say it wrong. It is sustainability of blood pressure reduction in Black barbershops. And that stuck with me a lot because they got good results because the barbershop initiated the study. Well, they promoted the study, didn't initiate it. And because the salon and the barbershops is a sacred space for most people, when they followed up with blood pressure, with medical professionals, of course, and pharmaceutical companies, the sustainability and the blood pressure went down so much in 6 months that they extended the study for a whole year, and the results were phenomenal. And this was in Los Angeles. So with that being said, gaining the trust of your customers and them knowing your knowledge and sharing with them what you learn and what you know, you gain that trust. And because we need more people, more African American people to participate in research in our studies, to participate in the studies, because we don't have a lot of information on us because we don't participate in studies. So just to gain that trust and just to see the results they got in doing this in the barbershop, that stuck with me because it made me want to replicate that study or something close to it, because I think we will have great results in whatever research we do. I feel like if we promote it and we gain their trust, then we can get a lot of studies done and we get a lot more participation. So it's not just so much as what they did, it's how they did and why and what the results were. So it was a lot of studies that touched me in different ways, but that one in particular.
Now, if I recall correctly, and forgive me, it's been years since I read the article that you're talking about, but what I believe happened was that they made the barbershop the kind of ground zero.
Yeah.
And they disseminated information and was able to help some of the patrons of that barbershop through an initiative, a health initiative.
Yes.
Am I remembering correctly?
And actually, we had an assignment. We had to, after doing so many journals, we had to find our own journal and break it down. And that was the one I chose.
Okay. Yeah. I vaguely remember that. It was some years ago when you did that, but yeah. Okay. How about you, Donisha?
So for me, like I said, my education started with a course that was focused on androgenetic hair loss. And I wanted to understand how these lasers work, how effective they are, and just all the information behind it. So the study that was of interest to me because it was familiar was the one on the efficacy and safety of low-level lasers in treatment of male and female pattern hair loss. And that one stuck with me because it was a comparison. And other studies, there were mostly men, and in this one, they actually had men and women, and they showed how effective the low-level lasers were for home treatment, as opposed to also those that utilize minoxidil and finasteride. So those products were not, so finasteride and minoxidil were not used. It was just the home lasers, and it was a handheld laser. And to show how effective those handheld lasers were in the treatment of improving the hair quality, improving the hair growth in male and female, that was monumental for me because in my center, I like to focus on holistic services and products. And so I don't have the minoxidil and the finasteride, and this is actually what I use to support that, is that there are products, the lasers work with this of the minoxidil and finasteride in several cases. And so I just support that. And that's because of the information that I received from that journal article, because what I was introduced to before was that, the need of minoxidil and finasteride in treatment of androgenetic. So to have that option for those who are looking for something outside of those products, that information equipped me with the tool to do that. So.
Yeah, so you raise a good point, because one of the things that let me back up. A lot of the research does show that compounded treatments do work, meaning that if you combine low laser light therapy and minoxidil, and maybe a topical, right? Then when you combine it, then you get results faster, and then you increase your probability of it being effective. But in order to show that one particular technique is good, or instrument, or concoction of some sort, then it is important for them to do a standalone study to make sure that that particular, I guess, the method that you're choosing will definitely be effective. So it's great that you're able to get benefit out of that, and know that you can see both standalone and with other treatments as well. And Dana?
Exactly.
So I can't identify one particular study, but what I can appreciate is being able to identify the limitations within a study. For example, if the study was only done on ages 45 to 55, and they're making claims to say that my product or my equipment does this, but you limit your research on one age group or one gender, or just only a few factors, that really doesn't tell the story of what you're claiming. So I think that was huge for me, to be able to identify those limiting factors within the research study.
I'm glad you said that, because one of the things I harp upon is the fact that there are limitations in research when it comes to us as Black people. I don't think enough of us participate, but I don't think the efforts are out there enough for people to get information about things, about our specific needs. So limitations is big. Thanks for sharing that. And so we talked a little bit about journal articles, and I talked about how sometimes it's difficult to understand it. I don't want people to leave here thinking that everything is easy. So I'm curious, with the concepts that you've been introduced to, what would you say is the most difficult concept? I mean, I have my theory in terms of what I think people or students have a hard time grasping, but I'm interested to get your perspective. So Dana, you want to start us off?
So mine was the independent variables in the study, and I still get it mixed up. So that was one concept to really understand the difference between the two. And I'm actually not going to even try to do it. Dr. Porter, if you could just share, I guess, with the audience with the independent and dependent variable would be, that'd be great. I don't want to confuse the audience.
You know what?
Yes.
I hate to put y'all on the spot. Oh yeah, oh yeah. You know what's coming,
Okay.
Marvelette. And
So,
don't
listen, I looked it up. Hold on. I had it
no,
up.
no. I'm a stickler for this. So yes, we are live, and I'm gonna put you on the spot because it is important to break down studies and understand what the dependent and independent variables are in the study. So I am not going to get you out of this,
Okay.
but your comrades are here to help you out.
Phone a friend. I'm phoning a friend.
Exactly.
I'm phoning a friend. You hit Marvelette because
Okay, the independent variable is the cause, I guess. And why you pick me? Okay, Dana.
no.
See, she picked you, Marvelette, because Donisha has an issue with independent and dependent too. And see, my little Twitter fingers are over here working like, man, let me see.
Okay.
So Marvelette, help us all
So
out.
I do have some. So okay. So for example, in a study to determine whether how long a student sleeps affects test scores, the independent variable is the length of time spent sleeping, while the dependent variable is the test score itself. So that is an example of an independent variable versus a dependent.
Okay. Let's put it in terms of hair care.
Okay.
All right. So everybody gonna learn today, the viewers, and I understand. Well, you know what? I opened up this can of worms because I agree with you, Dana. That is the one that a lot of students have a hard time grasping, and I understand it because you haven't had the experience of setting up a research experiment yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so the independent variables in a hair care study, and something totally made up here. So we want to study if this concoction makes the hair grow longer. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are certain things that we have to keep, the variables that we have to keep consistent, right? So are we going to use women or are we going to use men? These decisions that you make to measure hair growth, those are the independent variables. And so, for example, if you're choosing women, that's an independent variable. If you are choosing women of a particular age is going to be an independent variable. If you're going to have women of a particular age in a particular city, the city is another variable. And so that is an independent variable. But what you're measuring is hair growth. That is your dependent variable because it depends on all of those other variables, meaning the women or whether they're women, what their ages are, what city they're from. So what you're measuring is going to be your dependent variable.
You said that so well, Dr. Porter. We
And
knew
you
that.
explain it so well every time.
You do. You do.
You explain it so well, but it's like
Yeah.
it's like a puzzle. But you know what?
What you're measuring is going to be your dependent variable.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like learning a new language.
It is. It is.
It's like
It takes
learning a
practice.
new language. All right. So independent and dependent. Dependent again is what we're measuring, and the independent is the factors that contribute to that.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. That was perfect.
All right.
Okay. All right. So Marvelette hit on this earlier, but based on what you've read, or maybe what you haven't read, but you feel from your personal experience, things need to be studied more. What do you think we need to start doing or studying more in our research from your personal or professional perspective?
I would say the link between hair loss and autoimmune diseases
Mm,
types. Because
mm-hmm.
what I've noticed in my with my clients, a certain number have. I'll use this example. Mm, well, I can say it. CCCA, but they also have fibromyalgia. Two of them not taking medication, one of them is. So I've noticed that. And I've also noticed, like other things, let's use that as an example. But I've noticed certain people have certain types of autoimmune diseases, have certain types of hair loss. And some that didn't know they had autoimmune disease until after we discovered the hair loss, and vice versa, whether they're taking medication or not. So it's not necessarily medication, although that does play a large role in hair loss in certain situations, but they had it with and without the medication. So it's actually the disease that caused it. And had
Well,
a,
it may be the disease that caused it.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said it may be the
May, I'm
disease
sorry.
that
So
caused
I
it.
was going to reword that. I'm going to say they had similarities. Like they kind of coincidentally had a lot of similarities. People who had the same things going on had similar issues. And so I feel like that was a cause to prompt a study, to
Mm-hmm.
further investigate.
Yeah. So Taria says, "Oh, Marvelette, I was just researching this morning hair loss in people who have had COVID-19, and surprisingly, there are studies being done." Oh, absolutely,
Mhm. That's good as well.
absolutely.
I have quite a few of those. Yeah.
And Denise Hewlett says lupus. She says that that's another condition. Yeah, and so there have been studies to link hair loss with lupus. But you're right, there is a whole lot more. But speaking of the variables, those independent variables that we were talking about, there's so much to consider because is it something else that's going on that contributed to the disease as well as hair loss? Or is there a direct correlation with the disease to hair loss? I mean, so there could be some underlying factors or those independent variables that we have to consider to determine whether or not there is a link.
So, could we possibly do an elimination a process of elimination where we do smaller studies first,
Mm.
weed things out, and then who was ever left over and meet a certain criteria, then do the larger study?
I'm glad we're having this conversation because this is a part of the brainstorming that comes about when it comes to deciding how to conduct the study. So you talked about smaller studies. The the unfortunate part about doing smaller studies, which are like pilot studies, so to speak, is that you don't have the volume to really make your case. A lot of times I like to save those smaller or pilot studies for working out the kinks of a bigger study.
Okay.
So, yes, it is a good idea to do smaller studies sometimes, but for what you're talking about, oh my gosh, anytime you start talking about human beings, because the other variables that we have to consider are like their lifestyle, what environment are they in? Everybody always talks about diet, big part of the lifestyle factor. So there are so many things that we need to consider, which is one of the reasons why I'm an advocate for the All of Us study. I've spoken about that in the past, but I'm loving the fact that there are researchers who are looking at, and I think their goal is having 1 million Americans participate. But I think last time I saw, they may have, I think they're at 300,000 for people who have like done their physicals and gotten their DNA samples and all of that. And so the more people participate, the more we can understand because scientists can get those independent variables and start measuring the dependent variables to see what's going on with us. So that's awesome. Taria says, yes, Marvelette, I love your mind. Yes, she has a great mind. She's always thinking about things. And so it just takes a lot. And so what we're doing is just looking at or doing observational studies. So we are observing what's going on, collecting data, and then seeing what parses out. And the more data we get, the better the results are going to be in terms of us being able to hone in to do a more controlled study where we're able to hold things constant and then really fine tune what we're doing. So I want to start wrapping this up. I want to make sure that if there are any questions that the viewers have, feel free to put it in. But I want to know what, I hate to say advice because I don't think we're know-it-alls, but from your experience, what nuggets would you give to someone who may want to expand their knowledge about hair science and incorporate it into their practice? Let's do Donisha.
I would encourage that if there's something that you see on a regular basis, if there's a certain type of pattern that you're seeing with your clients, whether it's COVID, hair loss, if you notice the excessive shedding, if you have clients that are on medications and you see a pattern, you know, that you may want to put your finger on to be able to assist that group of people, then to write down your question. Write down the question that you want to answer and then dive right in. There's research journals that are available. There's a lot of information that may be available, or you may find that there isn't a lot of information that is available and you may want to further that. So my advice would be to write down what your why, your question as to what you want to understand. And then I also would say take your program, because that helps any practitioner to be able to identify what you're looking for, how to answer that question, the independent and dependent variables that have to be considered. Because there's a lot of information that has to be considered before you even move forward in answering the question. And so just start off with what your question is, what problem you want to solve, or what you want to understand more of, and go from there.
Awesome. Marvelette?
I would say definitely start with your research, and I say that because that will let you understand how involved you want to be, how much dedication you give to it. Then I would say if you find yourself intrigued, you want to learn more, then start taking classes. If you're still intrigued, then go into an institution where you can get proper training. And I say those stages because it's not easy. And I say if you do it that way, and you don't have to do it in that order, but that's just my suggestion, because you'll know how much dedication you're really, really willing to give to it. And if you have the time, and if you can sustain it, because it's not cheap and it's very time consuming. And it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of words. It's a whole nother world. It's a whole nother world. So I suggest you make sure you're prepared to take it on. Because for me, I can't quit. Once I start, I have to finish it. That's just something I stand by my whole life. That's just quitting ain't an option. Never option. So just make sure you're ready to take it on, because it's a challenge.
Yeah. How about you, Dana?
So I would tell you to take a class first for me, because you need to know how to read, how to research, how to read the journals. That was one of the big takeaways, like actually how to understand it and learning the independence. You need to know what you're reading, to be able to, digest it. So I would tell you absolutely take a class. And of course, I'm biased to Dr. Porter's class for sure, because she is motivated with helping the practitioner. So you'll be able to get a class that's speaking your language. So I would definitely take the boot camp class.
And I just want to add one other thing: connect with people who are willing to share and help, because you definitely need help from people who are willing to help you.
Yeah.
That makes a world of difference.
Yes.
Ask a lot of questions.
Yes, say that again.
Ask a lot of questions.
Ask a lot of questions. Yes. If there isn't anything from this series that I do that I want people to take away, and that is to question everything. Everything that you hear, just ask why. Especially when it comes to products. What has been done? Has it been done on me? Me as an individual or as a population. So women, black women, black women who are age 45 and up. I mean, there are some unique things that go on with women, black women in particular, who are over the age of 45. So that these are the questions. These are the independent variables that we need to consider to make sure that it is right for us. So
Dr.
excellent.
Dr. Porter, I want to share a research study I think that needs to be done, and that is the correlation between fibroids and hair loss, specifically CCCA, because we know both CCCA and fibroids are impact African American women in a huge way, and so I would like to be able to research that.
Hmm. Well, as I always say, I am not the only hair scientist out there. Yes, there are some things that I want to study, and thanks to you guys who are willing to help me collect the data, we can actually start getting some of the answers. But I cannot say that I have all the resources that would be necessary to take on such a huge endeavor. So if there are any of my peers who are listening, this is a good nugget because it's needed. And yeah, we need to understand more. And if I can be of assistance in doing that and helping to collect the data, just let me know. And I have trained team members who are willing to help out as well. So that's awesome. So before we close up, I want to make sure that we can answer how to. So, how to build a research based practice. And so I want to ask you, Marvelette, is there anything that you would suggest since you've gone through the process in building a research based practice?
I don't even know how to answer that because there's so much that goes into that.
Just one thing. Just one thing.
Collecting data. Collecting data.
Collecting, collecting data. Okay. And how about you, Dana?
Staying abreast of scientific advancements as well, keeping your
Oh,
ear to the ground.
absolutely. And
Mhm.
there are, like, for example, there are professional associations or conferences that go on. One that I can think of is the Textile Research Institute. They had a very high level one this past June. They had a summit or a symposium, and it lasted all week. And so they have a lot of knowledge about what hair scientists such as myself are doing, and they disseminate that information there. They also, so David Kingsley is having his World Congress of Trichology in the middle of September. So attending something like that would be beneficial as well. And then we can't forget about the dermatologist. There is a association called the Scarring Alopecia Foundation, and there are scientists who are specialized in hair and scalp research who are part of that. So joining or at least being abreast of when they have different events that will help in staying abreast. So that's awesome. How about you, Donisha?
Well, I would encourage to use recommended products that are effective and that are safe, that have the data to show their efficacy. So
Yeah,
that's what I
absolutely.
would encourage. After you answer, get that question that you want to answer, find the products that have the data to support the use of those um, tools and products and services.
Right.
And then also finding a reputable institution to help you to educate you.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that is great. Thank you for that. So I want to go through if anyone wants to contact you, Marvelette, where can you be found?
You can contact me at you can email me at info@trichoscienceclinic.com, or you can visit my website or message at www.trichoscienceclinic.com.
All right. Donisha?
I can be reached at website is www.thehbtc.com. And that is T as in Tom, H as in Henry, E as in Echo, T as in Tom, H as in Henry, B as in boy, T as in cat, T as in Tom, C as in cat. So .com, THBTC. It's a tongue twister.
Yeah.
And email is info@thehbtc.com as well.
Okay. And Dana?
Yes, you can reach me at haircares with the S Inc.com, or by email info@haircares with the S Inc.com. It's well.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks, Marvelette. Really appreciate you being here. Also, you, Denise and Talia. Yeah. So, if there aren't any other questions, if you decide to watch the replay, be sure to post your comments or questions. And if there is any other information that you would like for us to talk about, then you can definitely post it there. And if you're interested in finding a vetted hair professional, as you see, my team is here, and we'll put the little ticker down so you can see it on the screen. All right. And so you can schedule a complimentary consultation if you want to. And always remember that our Black hair matters. And as always, take care and love your hair. Bye-bye.